can we give a 2-person event production team the same execution ability as 20 people? So the principles they apply in other industries. They just got done in coding agents first.
Welcome, everybody, to another episode of the How Many CTOs Does It Take podcast. I am Brad Hefta-Gaub, and my co-host is
Scott Porad.
And today we have a very special guest, Ritesh Patel from Ticket Ferry. Ritesh, why don't you introduce yourself? Tell us a little bit about the journey that brought you here, and let's talk about whatever you want to talk about.
As you mentioned, my name is Ritesh. I'm co-founder of Ticket Ferry. We're a vertical SaaS platform for the live events industry. We typically serve the creative industry that does not have internal tech resources. So it's a really interesting product to build.
Very cool.
So when you say live events, I immediately think Ticketmaster. Is that your competitor, or is it some other slice of the entertainment industry?
It's an entirely different slice. So the way we've been positioning ourselves recently is Ticketmaster is part of a larger group of companies. So Live Nation is a parent company. Live Nation's the biggest concert promoter in the world. So they actually run the events. Then they have the ticketing platform. They also own many of the venues that they put the events on at. They might own the parking lots or have various different revenue streams.
They own the t-shirt printing companies.
Yeah, they are allowed to give, or they're not even allowed to, they give funding to their internal companies, whether it's a festival or a venue. So really it's a verticalized business that many have thought they would try and break by offering lower fees to the general public without really understanding that that's not how the business works. So we've never tried to go into that part of that slice because it is a really good way to burn a lot of VC money and fail.
Mm-hmm.
So what slice do you take on?
Everyone else. So basically the framing for why we exist is that an events company, be that a venue, a festival, just someone who runs events regularly, it's not that different conceptually from a tech founder. You've basically got a product, you've got a brand, you have an audience, you have a vision for what you want to bring to the world. It's really similar to being a founder of any company, particularly a tech company. The difference is that you don't have access to venture capital. Most of the things you do will be, well, in fact, the same with startups, but everything will be like learning by doing and seeing what worked and what didn't and iterating. And it will take you 5 or 6 years minimum to even just break even on your business, let alone become healthy and cash flow positive. So lots of parallels. And so most of these companies that are not in that kind of Live Nation slice are 1, 2, 3 people max full-time. They might be juggling a day job as well until the company can actually help make their salaries, which might not happen for 5 or 6 years. What they don't have is like huge budgets to hire developers and engineers and a CTO and data scientists and expert marketers. They have their creative vision that they're trying to execute. And then most of their staff are freelancers and contractors in the week or 2 leading up to their event. So for us, it's like, well, there's a lot of knowledge and expertise in the industry that they're going to maybe take a decade to learn. Well, why wouldn't we just productize that and then build out all the layers of tech they need? So instead of using horizontal software, generic task management platforms and Google Sheets and whatever else, why should we just want to encode all of the best practices of the industry of how to actually make money from it into one platform and allow these teams to do the same as teams that are 10 times their size.
Yeah.
So for way of example, my friend Maria, who lives in Portland, Oregon, she runs the film festival a film festival in Oregon. I think they've been doing it 20 years now. So it sounds like she's the kind of person, it's just her and her husband, and she's full-time and her husband has a day job, and they run this thing, and I'm sure there's a million people they work with. It sounds like they're the kind of person that would use your platform.
Yeah, and the thing is that even though it may be only 1 or 2 people doing something like running an event or festival or a venue, that doesn't mean they can't do things at scale. It just means that the expenditure on staffing and resources is really weighted towards like the weeks leading up to the event
Mm-hmm.
and the weekend of the event, right? Like an event might still spend $5 million on production and talent and
Mm-hmm.
whatever else, but it's really concentrated into like a small space of time. So
Mm-hmm.
two people can do things that are really big. It's not that a small person team has to do a 500-person event. They can do a 10,000-person event as long as they bring in
Mm-hmm.
a team closer to the time.
Right.
Yeah.
Now, you've been doing this for like a decade.
Yeah, more. Yeah.
Okay, so tell us I mean, let's go to the origin story. Like, how did this
Yeah.
come about? Like, and tell us about your journey. Like, what's the story there?
Origin story. Okay.
And I'd also love to hear, as you tell that story, Ritesh, you said you were the co-founder, and I'd love to hear about kind of like like what's your background? What's the rest of your team's background? Like this, it's a fascinating product you have.
Sure. So my co-founder is actually my brother, so that's nice.
Mm-hmm.
Like, no, all the founder squabbles were done, by the time we were like 12 years old, so that's cool. um, and like my personal background, I started coding on a Commodore 64 in 1989. Considering this is a
Nice.
CTOs podcast, this is like maybe
Mhm.
relevant. Started building software products in 93 when I was 13. Used it as an excuse to learn C and built products that my high school adopted. Did that a couple of times over the next few years. By the time I got to university for computer science, I'd already been building products for 5 years. And I was like, well, I kind of done it. Why am I doing like linked linked tree algorithm exercises in computer science 101? And at the same time, discovered the music scene and the rave scene in my college town, and it kind of took over my life. And we started throwing 300, 400 person house parties with DJs and sound systems and, like word of mouth marketing. And about a year into that or even 9 months into that, realized that I wanted to like try doing it professionally, and approached venues with my housemate and got a Saturday night at the most prestigious venue in town and called up the artist booking agency, and as a 19-year-old kid asked if we could book the 4 biggest DJs on their roster, and they thought we were crazy. And they said yes. And then we did this gig and packed it out in the first 45 minutes. But with my nerd hat on, this is like January 2000, someone I'd been speaking to in an IRC chat room, in a music chat room, was a sysadmin, and he said he was interested in coming down to the gig. And I was like, well, can I borrow one of your servers? Because there was no cloud, right? This is like pre-cloud. It's like, can I borrow one of your servers, and can I install the real server streaming software on it so
Nice.
that we can do a live stream? I was
Mhm.
like, yeah, sure. And I'll come down and like, I'll help you out. And so
Now you're just pandering to me, right, Ritesh? You know that I was at Real Networks and helped build that software.
I actually did not.
There you go. Anyway, so cool. Real server, love
All
it.
right, nice. Yeah, so I asked him to install the real server software on this box in 2000. That was like in some data center somewhere, and then put my massive PC tower and no flat screen monitor. These are like the big days of the eARMA, big like huge cube monitors. Like lugged all of that into the back of my car, took it to the venue, and had to run like 35 feet of audio cables with couplers in the middle because there wasn't like a cable long enough from the stage to the Sound Blaster card in my PC, and then connected my 56K modem to the venue's phone line and connected my dial-up account.
Wow.
And
Love it.
yeah, sent a real-time at the time mono 20 kilobit stream, because I knew that like bandwidth wise, you go highest quality first on the uplink, and then everyone else can listen at higher quality than trying to like squeeze a stereo stream into dial-up. And then promoted it on news groups and chat rooms, and people listened in real time all over the world. And that was like my nerd meets rave promoter start.
Wow.
Love it. There you
So
go.
how did you get from there to the beginning of Ticket Fairy?
2 careers in parallel. Barely scraped through the computer science degree because I ended up being obsessed with music. So I ended up not really going into class and waking up at 5 p.m. every day. And I started running like 5 events a month, all booking like professional DJs, and built an events brand that started getting a lot of press. And then when I graduated, started working at the BBC in corporate IT, still kept running the events company, and did that in parallel for almost a decade. And moved to Australia and did the same thing, started working for ad tech companies and eventually got into cloud architecture and started building like ad tech big data systems and click logging and all this kind of like, fun stuff, and understanding how affiliate tracking worked in e-commerce. There was kind of a light bulb moment where it was like, wait a second, I've produced 500 events and it's really hard for them to break even. And I bet that everyone has that problem. It's a super unpredictable business.
Mm-hmm.
What if we applied affiliate marketing principles to event ticketing?
Yeah.
And so the light bulb moment was build a ticketing platform that the moment someone finishes buying a ticket, they get offered up to 100% refund on the price of that ticket if they can drive sales using a tracking link.
Mm-hmm.
We're the first in the world to do it. And then they would get an automated refund back to their card based on how many more people they got to go to the same event as them. And psychologically, it was like, well, this makes sense. If I'm paying to $50 to go and see a DJ I love, I'm going to try and drag my friends to see that same DJ because I love them. And this event organizer who's desperately trying to break even on their costs is looking for distribution and people that would go to that gig. So why not incentivize the people that are already paying for the product to bring in more? And now we know that that's the right way to sell anything online. But it was a very new concept for events, digitally anyway. Like there was always like hey, bring 10 friends to the entrance of a club and you can come in for free. But it was never done digitally in that way.
Yeah, very cool.
And that was the beginning of Ticket Fairy.
Exactly.
Obviously, with your tech background, I'm kind of curious, how do you describe like the various hats you have to wear as a founder, whether you're sort of solving the technical problem, solving the product problem, solving the business problem? One of the things that Scott and I often talk about is the job of the CTO to kind of be that bridge between the getting it done technically and the understanding the business needs and the business stakeholders. And it sounds like you're kind of all those things at once. So I'm kind of just curious, what's your experience in that space of sort of the balancing of the business needs from the technology, getting the technology built?
My team hates it when I push code to the master branch without a pull request.
That
They should.
Bad CEO.
They should hate it.
I mean, I still code every day, obviously. We noticed, for example, that our onboarding UX for new clients was very heavily broken and hadn't realized for a while that like people were making their accounts, they were setting up their organizations, and then they weren't making their first event. And it's very much a UX, like that there's too many fields, it's too overwhelming. This product is too advanced, I don't know what to do type thing, right?
Yeah, classic.
We've built like the way we built the product is listen to all clients and also like think about like business analysis and where their gaps are and can we fill those, and also like what do we think the industry needs. But every event is different, right? So like it could be a 20,000 person event or a 200 person event, it could be multi-day, it could be one day, it could be music, it could be sports, it could be gaming. Like, so you need to have the matrix of everything everyone needs, but obviously you can't have it all on at once or that logic would clash. So we built like hundreds, if not over 1,000 feature flags that all can get chained in different scenarios. And then a feature flag could either be on or off, or it could be configurable. And so that creates like hundreds of thousands of potential combinations of logic. And so like, that's hard to put into a product in terms of UX. Last year, we set a really big UX and UI overhaul project that we were going to launch in October, and it's still not out yet. And the other day I was just like, I don't care. I need it live right now. We'll deal with it when it goes live. And like, that's my business brain talking rather than my, tech perfectionist brain talking. And it's really difficult to balance. And sometimes there's a deal that is like, you're going to make 100 grand out of one deal. And, our ACVs are way higher than standard SaaS. So like, it's not uncommon that we make $100,000 a year from a client just for the software.
Right.
So when you have a deal that big, but the client says, well, my press for my event announcements going to go out on March the 1st, and that won't move. And if you can't meet that deadline, then you just don't get our business because there's a whole PR campaign attached to it. And, like it's public, right? Like the difference between us and normal software is that when someone uses us, it's a very public facing thing. This event has been announced. It goes on sale on this date at this time.
Yeah. Classic.
Right. Like we don't have the liberty to say it won't be ready yet.
Yeah.
And so I have to then pull the team off what they're doing and be like, nope, Like you've got to stop doing this now and context switch to this.
I'd be interested to know, I should say, how you have designed the system to handle those spikes, which I presume you get when tickets go on sale or when events are announced.
Before doing this company, my most recent job was cloud architecture and infrastructure as code. And so kind of there was a level of like, hey, I know how to do load balancing and kernel level server optimization and understanding like, where all the issues are. Like, you can't just roll out MySQL out of the box without configuring the parameters because you'll be using a fraction of the capabilities of the hardware it's on. So I had a lot of experience with that. And so like understanding horizontal scaling and vertical scaling was really important when first building this company. So the principles were there like fairly early on. And then you realize, well, that's actually not enough, right? Like then like, there's race conditions in inventory locking and you can't oversell an event or the same seat or whatever. And so, then I had to think about, okay, how do we use Redis to lock inventory across multiple servers in real time so that you can't oversell? And then it was like, wait a second, what could be made asynchronous? And then, I designed a whole job queue system and made, and then had to implement RabbitMQ to have all these, like, have things going into queues. And then it was like, wait, one queue is not enough. We need 10 different queues so that real time things that need to be near real time go in one, and then longer running jobs go into another. So you're not blocking. And then you think you've done everything right, and the client sends a massive spike, and you realize there's a database index missing, and the whole system went down anyway.
Yeah.
So a lot of it is just like, oh man, we should solve that. We just found another bottleneck. We should fix it, and then think about what happens next time.
Right. And those are only lessons you can learn from just being in the business.
Yeah, unfortunately, like, you could architect this stuff in a ideal scenario and still not understand that, like, oh, this one component in the middle failed, and that created a stampede effect, and you hadn't accounted for it.
Yeah, I've always had the sense that like the sort of the event ticketing problem is like that and pay-per-view are these two types of problems in sort of like digital media and computer science that are like very, very bursty in nature. And
Yeah.
it's totally different to deal with, a burst like that where you cannot oversell it. You have to account for every seat. You have to account for every ticket.
Yeah.
Than many of the other scaling problems that exist out there, right? Like
absolutely. And think of the pressure where your client has spent 6 months leading up to putting their event on sale, and they've done all this press, and they announce, and you crash, and half of the buyers don't come back.
Listen, I was just like, I'm just picturing like the original rollout of the ACA website, the Obamacare website, or something like that, right? Like it's such a huge fanfare for something, and then if it doesn't work, oh boy, egg on everyone's face.
More germane to this is when Taylor Swift announced her
Right.
tour. But I think here's what makes it a challenging technical situation. Often the way to handle these types of spikes or these types of scale is through distributing things and being asynchronous, a variety of techniques, but all about spreading stuff out. But when you have a very limited controlled inventory, then it has to be very centralized. So you have to find some way to
exactly. Eventual consistency is not an option.
Yeah, exactly.
Exactly.
Consistency is not the solution to this problem. Exactly.
That's exactly right. I always wonder, like, here's a question. I always wonder, like, when I go on to buy an airline ticket, and you're going in there and you click you want the flight and you put it in your quote unquote cart, and then you pick in your seat and so on and so forth. Are they holding that seat for me, or is it not until I finally click checkout? Like, could someone snipe me and get underneath there?
So to the best of my knowledge, they're holding the fare.
Yeah.
But they're not holding the seat. But some airlines will, when you click the seat, they will hold it, because let's say you abandon your cart and you come back a minute later and someone else hasn't picked the seat, it's still held. So I think they do a combination of the two.
So how do you do it with tickets? Do you hold the ticket, or you must hold the seat?
Yeah, you have to hold both.
Yeah, you have to do it that way.
You have to hold both.
Okay, so can I go back and ask you about this big UX overview you're doing? I mean, the topic du jour, it's all we can ever talk about on this podcast, is AI. It's all anybody wants to talk about. Has that been part of your reworking, or is that part of your world, or is that not a thing you guys are doing yet?
Very, very heavily part of our world.
Oh, tell
So,
us about it.
we did Y Combinator in 2015 when Sam Altman was running it.
Okay.
When the first GPT versions and APIs got launched, YC companies had early access. And from memory, that was like 2020. And so like since then, I've been playing around with what's possible with LLMs. I asked OpenAI like how, like, here's the persona of an event organizer, write a marketing strategy for them, and actually posted that on LinkedIn as like, this was a fully 100% LLM generated article. What do you think of it? And over time, like, you realize that there's many, many use cases, both internally and externally for LLMs. And so like one of the things on my tech roadmap for the last 4 years was what I called the conversational dashboard, because I realized that we had so many features that we needed our clients to be able to just ask the system in natural language what they wanted to do, and also not rely on having to wait until like 9 a.m. the next morning to get an answer from an account manager. Because sometimes you have like, it's 2 a.m. and there's 1,000 people outside your venue and the tickets aren't scanning and you need to know right now. Right? Like, again, like it's the you can't have eventual consistency thing. Those 1,000 people are gonna cause a riot if they don't get into a venue. Like, you can't even wait 20 minutes. My goal for solving that was, a fully conversational agent trained on every API endpoint, every feature, to be able to provide that like kind of 24/7 account manager on the event organizer side. And then looking into it was kind of like, oh wait, the models aren't capable, the frameworks aren't capable. And we're only really going into a point in the last like 2 months, maybe 3 months, where all the LLMs and the agent frameworks are stable enough to give you something that's reliable. And so, like things we wanted to do for years, now we can roll those out this year. In the meantime, it's been kind of experimentation with like internal scripts, adopting coding agents, adopting AI workflows for code reviews, being able to do sprints on features, or, like use something like V0 to prototype a UI and figure out like, what needs to get built. And so like, we've been really early in the adoption process for AI, but like there's a lot of early AI companies that no longer exist because, like they were just very early, like, hey, write an article using a prompt. Yeah. And now you could build that in like 5 minutes.
Right.
Has it been helpful with this, from the coding perspective, has it been helpful with this UX revamp that you're doing?
Yes, I think that like, actually, here's a really concrete example. Myself and one of the other guys in the team are very good with PHP, but we can do front end vanilla HTML, JavaScript, jQuery, but we can't do React. Because coding in React is a completely different mindset, and
totally.
It's just like it does my head in. I don't understand the way React works, but you asked me to build something in jQuery, and I can do it. And in that scenario, it was like, okay, well, I can either write my own PHP endpoints, or ask an agent to like evolve what we have and be able to code review it and say, no, that's correct or it isn't, which is great. And then for the first time, it didn't have to get handed over to a front end developer that would manually build the UI, that we could both just be like, hey, adapt the UI to do this, or adapt the UI based on this API endpoint. And we did a lot of work on the UX improvements, just having gained the ability to do that before it went to a professional design team to then make it look nice.
That's because your front end was developed in React, and as a developer yourself, you weren't as confident in that particular tool set. And so the AI coding agent kind of gave you that confidence or that ability to basically write the React stuff for you. Yeah.
Exactly. Yeah. And I think that's like there's non-coders who can build software now, but for people who are very technical, like I'm very technical, right? I can I once lost data on a hard drive and reconstructed the partition table using a hex editor and recovered all the data. Like, so I'm really technical, but I couldn't for the life of me figure out how to do React.
Yeah. I think it's an interesting example too, because React is a good example of something that's got a ton of the corpus exists around React. Like it's been, React has been out on the internet and has been sucked into all of the models.
Mm,
It's a quite large set of data, right?
exactly.
And
Yeah,
so it can be quite good at it because it's got such a large exposure to ways of
absolutely.
doing it.
And
And
and because it's a more modern framework, there's a lot of documentation, right? Like there's so much.
yeah,
Hmm.
totally. Yeah, it's one of those things where it's whenever I think about like again, Scott and I often are talking about how do we get engineers that might be, recalcitrant or like unwilling to sort of like consider using AI coding. Like how do you convince them to do it? And maybe that's a good example where it's like, hey, if there's an area that you're not an expert in, try to get it to do some of that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That then you'll show like it would take you so much longer to become a React expert than it is for you to be able to code review work by a React expert, right? Like as
Exactly.
somebody who's observing it from the outside and saying like this is what I want you to do. I've given you the implementation plan. Come back and implement it for me and then let me validate your work, test it, verify that it's behaving the way I want it to. That's a straightforward thing.
It is. It is. And if you coded in one language, you can most likely read at least with some level of competency another language, right?
Yeah,
Hmm.
sure.
Or another framework or whatever it is. The hard part is writing it from scratch because you haven't got enough experience in it.
Yeah.
Yeah. I think I've talked about this here on the podcast. One of my first experiments with some of the agents was getting it to try to write a React native app for me.
Hmm.
And it came back. I said, just make me the framework. And it came back with, like 60 files. And I remember thinking to myself, I wonder if this is correct or not. I didn't really know
Yeah.
because it wasn't something I had familiar with. But we have seen, at least where I'm working now, a lot of success with what you're talking about right now, which is, hey, I had to go and deal with this bash script and I don't know anything about bash. And I asked whatever model the person was using to help me and it solved it, right? And that's been a big victory a lot of times for us, for sure.
Right. Right. And it's like it's also for people that know what they're doing, it avoids the rigor of back and forth. And like here's an example. 2007, I flew myself out to Delhi to become Red Hat Linux certified. Like I'd been building Linux boxes for years, and I was like, let me get a certification because like I was still working day jobs for people, right? So I was like, okay, this company didn't exist yet. So I was like, okay, if I become certified, that's another thing on my resume. And if you're Red Hat certified, that's a really good thing. And so
Mhm.
you learn how to build a box from the ground up, and all the how to configure the kernel and how to configure the file systems using text files. Like it's really technical how to configure web servers manually and all of this stuff, right? But the other day, like we had something where our production server was returning errors when it got too many cookies sent to it because the headers and the server software weren't big enough. And that might have taken me a day of experimentation and getting the syntax right and trying to like, reload the configuration and it'll be like, oh, a semicolon's missing or this directive is in the wrong place. And I could just say to a model, look in the Nginx config. This is the thing that's happening. There are already buffers in there, but they're not big enough. Optimize it.
Yeah.
Mhm.
I know what needs to be done.
Yeah.
I know what the end result will be. That's a successful result, but I need it to be done in 2 minutes, not in 2 hours.
Yeah.
I wonder if there's a world ahead of us. And actually, I suspect this world exists out there already, and I just don't know about it. Where you basically, I'm just going to try to paint a picture. You basically plug Datadog and your server configuration into some AI and say, keep these metrics within these tolerances, go forth and adjust, and just let it kind of in relatively real time maintain those environments. You don't even have to know anymore. You just have to know that this is the outcome I want. I
Mm.
want this kind of latency and this kind of response time and so on and so forth.
Yeah,
And
yeah,
just it does it magically.
and AWS to their credit have certain things you can do now where like you can say, if the average CPU usage on the database is if it exceeds 15%, then spin up another replica and try and get
Hmm.
that pull the average down. So you can
Yeah.
definitely do that in an automated way, but once you start applying to your own software, then that becomes really powerful.
Hmm.
Yeah. I think that you said something earlier, Ritesh, that I was like, oh yeah, there's something to be dug into on the phrase. I think you said something like, if you know what you're doing, then the tools can make you really fast. And I think this is what I've been saying for a long time, which is that I feel like there's going to be like this like K-shaped economy for good engineers, like which is to say the effects of like AI assistance for someone who's already a strong engineer, they're just going to be they're just going to skyrocket with it. But if you're actually not a good engineer or you don't know what you're doing, I think you're going to go fast nowhere or fast in the wrong direction.
For
Well, I mean,
sure.
you see a lot of examples relatively recently where, like, say, someone's used, say, Lovable or one of the other, like, like build your app using a prompt type systems, and they don't have the principles of, say, database security or like open ports or unauthenticated endpoints and things like that, where, if someone who doesn't know what they're doing builds this thing and they're really happy with themselves, and so they should be, but they don't know what they don't know.
Yeah,
And what they don't know is that the entire system is open for exploit.
right. Right.
Hmm.
All my keys are like literally just in the code or something like
Exactly.
that.
Exactly. And that's where it's like both empowering as a technology and very dangerous, because you're giving firepower to people that, like, what if you, I think there was a thing recently where, like, someone collected negative dating reviews from women and they must have vibe coded it, and then someone leaked the entire database.
Hmm.
There you go.
It's like, putting a gun in the chimpanzee exhibit. It's funny at first.
Yeah. So how do you as a business owner and a technology leader and a team leader, how are you making sure that your team is not misusing the technology and it actually is being a force multiplier as opposed to a negative force multiplier?
So the way we built engineering, and this was kind of a necessity as well as a nice to have, was that in the early days, like for the first 5 years of Ticket Ferry, I wrote every line of code and also sat down with clients and became the, you know, now Palantir has a lot of kudos to them for deploying for forward
Yeah.
deployed engineers.
Forward
We were
deploy
we were doing
engineers.
that from the very beginning. Like
Yeah,
it's
that was
like
your idea.
right, like it's like 2009, 10, let's sit down with clients and figure out, like, what they need and sit in their businesses. And like for the first few years of Ticket Ferry, I would fly to the other side of the world to a festival that we were one of our early clients, and sit in the box office for 18 hours a day and do the customer service and monitor all the bottlenecks and like any bugs and scanning and the whole thing, right? Like we over optimized on the architecture of the platform by making it able to be in multiple currencies and multiple payment gateways, and all of that really early on, like 2014, where like it was already, or even earlier, it was already multi-currency. So you'd pick the venue of the event and it would dynamically choose the currency, the time zone, the payment gateway, and then everything. And there's like in every API endpoint, there's time zone maths on all the stats coming out of the database, so it's all local to the event. But because we had distributed clients, we had to start putting teams into different time zones. And so then, we hired one of the first engineering hires, like, was based in Australia. And like, we started doing like, okay, well, multi-time zone engineering and multi-time zone account management. And then over time, we built teams in different time zones that gives us the engineering capabilities in about 20 hours a day. And so part of it is being able to do more than other companies who work on a 9 to 5. And part of it is like, hey, this critical bug for a 10,000 person event just came in at 1 a.m. US time, but someone in New Zealand's still working and they can fix it.
Yeah.
And so that was really important in terms of like how we structured the team. The other thing was like, we have a dedicated role called client facing engineer that is, the same principle as a forward deployed engineer, that works really closely with clients and kind of looks at individual feature requests that are not like long-term platform roadmap, but like individually, what does a client need, spec it out, hide it behind a feature flag, roll it out in a pilot, refine it, make it more generalized, and then roll it out everywhere else. So there's a lot of like disciplines we've had to bring in really early on that are now, like considered industry standard best practices that we're
Yeah.
just like forced into doing.
Yeah.
Yeah, to the nature of those live events.
Yeah. Yeah. So it's tough. Going back to answering your question, how do we stop the um AI process from being misused or not used correctly? Because there's multiple teams, when someone in the team sends out a pull request, other devs in their local team do a peer review. Once it's peer reviewed by their local team, it goes to a team in another time zone to do their own peer review.
Mm.
Then it goes to a QA team to actually test that, and then it goes into production. And then in the last 6 months, we've also now added 3 or 4 different AI code review bots as well to catch anything that the manual peer review process doesn't.
Yeah.
Which ones have you been trying out? What's been most effective?
Graphite was a really good one. Graphite and CodeRabbit, like that was like very, very early on, really, really good. And then Anthropic rolled out a Claude Code Security GitHub action, so that was really good as well because that can catch a different type of thing. And then there's like Cursor Agent and GitHub Copilot, but like I would say Graphite's still really good, and CodeRabbit's still really good. And you know, sometimes it's a false bug report, but most of the time it will catch something that just got overlooked.
Yeah.
That the Claude Code Security, is that what it's called?
Yeah.
I think that's a pretty clever. I think I like that innovation. That's a valuable innovation.
Yeah, it's really nice because it's not just like a lint parser or a pattern matcher. Like it's like actually an LLM going, oh, what do I know about best practices and bugs that have been reported and exploits that have happened over the years, and like does this match any of those real life things that happened?
Yeah.
Plus whatever's documented in terms of like standard exploits.
Yeah, that seems like that kind of thing almost might start to become like a default in people's build pipelines. Like, why wouldn't you have that?
I mean, it really has to be. And like, you know, sometimes you can get overloaded with those code review comments, but wouldn't you rather that it gets picked up now than, you know, you lose a client over it?
It feels like a no-brainer to always have an AI coding agent do a code review. Heck, have multiple of them, you know, CodeRabbit and Copilot. Why not?
Well, there's the code review, but I think the security piece is especially interesting.
Sure. Yeah.
Because of just how much risk it can reduce. You know, look, there's a difference in my mind between a vulnerability that could lead to an exploit that leads to you using all your customer data versus we shipped a bug, which that's a type of bug. But having been on the other side of a security, every time I get a letter in the mail, you know, you guys get letters in the mail that says such and such a company had an event and now you get to have your credit score watched for 2 years. You ever get one of those letters?
Yeah. How many? Once a month.
I've not had that yet, but I've only been living in San Francisco for about 4 months, so this might be a new thing.
Well, you wait, you'll get it.
You wait.
So some company in the United States, I don't know exactly what the law is, but there's some criteria by where, under certain circumstances, a company is required to notify you if there's a data breach.
Right.
And so I would say I get 3 of them a year. 3 of these letters, such and such a company had a data breach. Your data might not even been taken. They don't even know. They just know they have to disclose to everybody. And then typically what they do is they say, you know, here's 2 years of credit score monitoring software for free. Okay. Right. I always think, but the point is, I always think to myself, I know the guy who was on the other side of that letter. And it was a really stressful day for him.
The CTO or the CISO or the, yeah.
Yeah, because I've been that guy once. I've been like, one time in my life, there was a real data breach at a company that I was at. And it was, and thankfully, I don't mean this to come out the wrong way. Thankfully, it was software I had inherited, and the data breach. So it wasn't totally my fault, is what I'm trying to say. But that felt reassuring. But I still had to clean it up, and it was really stressful and expensive. In fact, here's a funny thing about it. It was in the summer, and on a Friday, we were dealing with some sort of production issue. I can't even remember what that was. And it wasn't a huge thing, but it was a thing. Whatever. Friday wound down. We all left and said, we'll deal with this on Monday. And I got a phone call on Sunday midday. And I was out at a music festival, as a matter of fact. And I thought it was going to be somebody calling about that, saying, hey, we really shouldn't have put this down on Friday because it turns out it's been a bigger problem over the weekend and we're going to have to deal with it. And it was totally different. It was this security incident, which is like, hey, we just got an email from somebody saying they have access to all of our systems and they want this much Bitcoin. And you can only imagine, I can't even recreate the emotion, but the emotion, I mean, at the time, I probably, if someone saw me, the blood drained out of my face. And I was just like, oh, that's bad.
Yep.
So my point, coming back to the Claude security, what is it? It's Claude Code Security. Is
Yeah,
that what
cloud
it's
code
piece?
security.
Yeah.
I just think that's a no-brainer
Yeah.
to
Yeah,
stop
it
those
really
things
is.
because they're so painful. That cost us. I had to cost over $1 million to solve that problem when it happened.
As we're starting to kind of approach the near the end of our conversation, I am thinking, Ritesh, I would love to hear more from your perspective as someone who clearly built this business that you are incredibly passionate about. You took your technical expertise, you took your passion for, live music, and you built an incredible business out of it. I have been saying for a while that I think AI coding agents are going to make the solo entrepreneur or the two guys in the garage or the really small, scrappy team so much more likely to succeed because they basically have this force multiplier of AI assisting them. So agree, disagree? How do you what do you think about that thesis? And how would have it applied to Ticket Fairy had the AI coding agents been around 15 years ago?
I mean, look, massively agree. I mean, there is so my co-founder is tech savvy, but he's not a coder. And in the last week, he has built a really complex product to manage a bunch of internal processes. And it integrates with a bunch of different APIs and like systems that we have and Google Workspace and a bunch of other things. And he's just been iterating 100 times a day. And he's really detail oriented and he's really smart, but he can't code. And it's given him, and he's using Replit, and it's given him the ability to roll out this super complex system that's way better than things we pay for.
Yeah.
And that's very bespoke to what our requirements are. And we will be using it. And it's and if you then built a product, if you would a product person, you were going to start a company from scratch and you use those same principles, then absolutely that you can do the work of 20 people, even though you're only two people. And to be honest, like what we're building on the Ticket Fairy platform side, we're looking at that same force multiplier for the events industry. Can we give a two-person event production team the same execution ability as 20 people?
Yeah.
So the principles they apply in other industries. They just got done in coding agents first, because tech serves tech. But when we really start applying this to all industries, it still applies.
There you go. There you go, Scott. That's the AI bullish argument. It's great for entrepreneurs. They're gonna just build
It is
incredible stuff.
for the right entrepreneur.
Look, at the end of the day, you could build a product, but you still need you need the business acumen to be able to sell it. You need the business acumen to know what to build, right? So that doesn't stop you from. It doesn't prevent you needing to know what you're doing or know like your industry or your subject matter or whatever it is, like, or your audience. Like that's something an AI agent won't. I mean, it might teach you some of it, but it won't teach you all of it.
Right.
It's true.
Yeah.
It's true. I think, Brad, you're right. It's gonna accelerate the solopreneur or the duopreneurs, right? But it also takes a mindset. I think there's a mindset that you still have to have. I can't describe all that mindset other than to say curiosity is a part of it. Willingness to explore and be curious and try and figure it out. And it will help those people. But I think there's probably many people who, if you don't have that, it's still not going to help you.
Well, also, if you don't have that curiosity, that insatiable quest for learning more and open-mindedness, you're probably not an entrepreneur, right? Like entrepreneurs are driven by like they wake up in the morning and they go to sleep at night driven by the idea that they're going to solve a problem, learn something new, build
Yep.
something compelling.
Yeah, agreed. And there's also a constant thirst for learning, right? It's like I ingest as much information as humanly possible every single day.
Yeah.
But I think that you need to do that if you're gonna have a unique insight, because the more different areas of information you ingest, the easier it is to suddenly have that light bulb moment and be like, oh, wait, I've just seen an overlap in an industry that's underserved, or I've seen something where like this, I can stitch these three things together and that results in something that's 10 times as big. And that happens all the time. My dev team hate me because like I'll go integrate with this and build this, but build this in a certain way and don't use this library, use this one. And then like 6 months later, they realized that there was a plan all along to tie it all together. And they thought I was crazy at the time.
I love that story. I love that. I am curious about one last thing, and hopefully you can speak to this. What about the death of SaaS? And I feel like I wonder with you are clearly have a SaaS product, but it's clear that what you're bringing to the table is not just the software, but it's all the insights you have from decades of doing this yourself and being a promoter. And I just wonder, is that part of the magic of successful SaaS companies or like Ticket Fairy are going to be based on deep insights into a particular vertical or a particular problem space?
I'd say 95% yes. There will be those outliers that know nothing about their industry and still succeed. Like the CEO of Boom Aero, the company that's making supersonic planes. He had no experience in aviation and aerospace before he did it, and they're killing it. Yeah. And there are people that, and there's another guy that I forget which company it is, but it's a legal tech AI company, and I think he just sat with a bunch of lawyers for a year, or got a job as an intern or whatever it was, but like just really learned about the requirements of the industry. So there will be those people, but obviously, like if you have the domain expertise and you have done it before and you have been in whatever industry sector you're trying to serve, you have a way higher likelihood of succeeding because you have that deep, like it's one of the questions in the Y Combinator application is, what do you know that others don't know? And it's that.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Love it.
That's fundamentally how startups and entrepreneurship happens, right? Is that well, that's not all entrepreneurship. I mean, you could start a hair salon or something, but in terms of innovation, it is understanding something, seeing something in the world or that others don't see.
Yeah.
And often being told you're crazy.
Oh, everyone thought we were crazy. Everyone was like, and everyone misunderstood what we were trying to do. One of the first questions you asked is, are we competing with Ticketmaster? And everyone thought that for so long that they were like, we're not going to fund a company that would do this. Like that, it's too hard. And then I was like, well, we're trying to build these 10 different modules in the software. And they're like, but you're only supposed to do one thing and do it well. And I was like, yeah, but we're trying to make people money and you have to do all of these things. That's the one thing.
It's so I wonder why you had the answer so down pat when Scott asked you if you were like Ticketmaster. Well, this has been super fun, Ritesh. I love the story. I love the everything you've done, the drive you've shown to get Ticket Fairy where it is, and it's super cool to hear your story. And thanks for coming on the pod.
Appreciate it so much.
Yeah, and we'll obviously include links to Ticket Fairy in the show notes and stuff like that. But other than that, anything else you want to say to the audience of the How Many CTOs?
I just want to say that it's been really nice having this conversation because I don't get to go as technical as I know I can on most panels or podcasts or whatever it is. Now you talk about like conceptual products and you talk about business and music industry and whatever, but like I've got to really go in like on some of the more tech concepts, and that was really nice.
Yeah,
wonderful.
Awesome.
And that Real Networks link from back in the day is
there you go.
I didn't even know about it.
Awesome. Well, to our listeners, remember to rate, review, smash that subscribe button, and we'll see you on the next episode of How Many CTOs Does It Take podcast.
Bye, everyone.
This episode of How Many CTOs Does It Take podcast was edited by Saffron Hefta-Gaub. Our theme song was AI generated by Brad. Please follow us on all the social media platforms at How Many CTOs Pod. You can find us on YouTube, LinkedIn, Instagram, Facebook, Threads, X, TikTok, and Patreon, or at our website at howmanyctospod.com. And remember to rate, review, and subscribe on the podcast platform of your choice. Thanks for listening.